Now we are moving ahead with the next address, and for that I would like to invite on a stage Mr. Divan, Head of Cybersecurity CISO, Adani Green Energy Limited, for the theme address. So can we have a big round of applause, everyone? Thank you very much.
Good morning, all of you. I said good morning, yeah. Yeah, keep this energy over here, okay. So, first of all, I would like to thank you, MKP Singh sir, Gulshan Rai sir, Atulji and Prasanji and committee member and the delegates over here. So, warm welcome over here. So, today our theme is cyber resilient in a renewable energy ecosystem is business imperative. So after carefully brainstorming discussion on the theme, we finally decide the cyber resilient part and how it's important in our business. So this is our theme, and I will discuss in next 2 days what we will discuss in the panel and how this theme is engaging to the specific with the renewable energy. So I remember 17 July, we had conducted the GOTS event in the same stage and same area in the same hotel, where we had discussed OT cybersecurity. And this time, after the 5 months, we are discussing specifically for the renewable energy. So we are narrowed down in the OT environment, and specifically today we are discussing only for renewable. So wind, solar, bio, and hydro, how it's contribute to our economy, that we'll discuss, because now we are at 230 gigawatt energy generation capacity, and our goal is to become the 500 gigawatt by 2030. So cyber resilient is very important to achieve this goal. So today we'll discuss about this part, but before starting my speech, I would like to show the one video. So at least you will get the idea how cybersecurity and cyber resilience is very much important in the OT environment, specifically in the renewable.
2015, electric grid operators noticed the cursor on their control screen move across the screen on its own.
Slightly loud.
They clicked to order a breaker to open and then confirmed it. When the operator grabbed the mouse to try to correct it, it was unresponsive. The cursor then logged the operators out of the control system. When the operators tried to log back in, they weren't able to because their passwords had been changed. Then they noticed their computers weren't working at all. The operators helplessly watched hackers open breakers at 30 substations, essentially taking those substations offline. The hackers simultaneously hit 2 other power distribution companies with different systems in a similar fashion, which just about doubled the amount of substations taken offline. Then they disabled the backup power supply to 2 of the 3 distribution centers, which left the helpless operators themselves without electricity. When customers tried calling the customer service line to report the power outage, they had no luck because the customer service line was down. This was the 2015 cyber attack on the Western Ukraine power grid, affecting the Ivano-Frankivsk Oblast region. This was the first successful cyber attack to cause a power outage. According to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, about 225,000 people lost power. Eventually, grid operators were able to secure the system with manual controls. 6 hours later, they restored power. Although months after the incident, the electric company had not regained full remote control. After the attack, the Ukrainian government launched an investigation with the help of the FBI and U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The investigation reports were later analyzed and expanded upon by private firms such as Booz Allen Hamilton. The investigation and analysis found some concerning implications about the security of the American power grid and the successful cyber intrusions into the American power grid. We'll cover both of those later in the video. According to the Booz Allen Hamilton analysis, these attacks were well-coordinated attacks that seemed to follow the typical kill chain. It involved breaching multiple electric companies with different control systems. All of this suggests the attacks were carried out by a well-funded nation-state. According to multiple threat intelligence reports, it is suspected that in May 2014 and in March 2015, the Russian state-sponsored hacker group, Sandworm, conducted phishing campaigns targeting grid operators to install a remote access Trojan called Black Energy. They sent weaponized Microsoft files attached to emails from forged email addresses. The file included a malicious macro designed to install Black Energy. This gave them persistent remote access to the IT networks. Then they installed Black Energy plugins that siphon off the operator's credentials. They used those credentials to move laterally to the control systems for the power grid. This was about a year before the power outage. Over the course of the year preceding the outage, they installed more plugins to perform reconnaissance. They maintained their persistent access and identified targets. Then they weaponized. They developed custom malicious firmware updates for the serial to Ethernet converters and chose other existing cyber weapons. Their attacks seemed to be intentionally timed right before Christmas. Before opening the breakers, they scheduled an outage of the uninterruptible power supply at the power grid control stations. After the attackers remotely opened the breakers, they then wiped the files on their systems with a malware called KillDisk, rendering the operator's computers useless. Some of the KillDisk was triggered from remote command and control servers, and some was triggered with logic bombs. Then the hackers deployed the malicious firmware updates to the serial to Ethernet devices at the substations by leveraging a firmware overwrite vulnerability, which effectively killed those devices. Those serial to Ethernet devices process remote control commands, so the malicious firmware effectively disabled remote control. Once the firmware is overwritten, it cannot be undone, so those serial to Ethernet devices needed to be replaced. At the same time, the threat actors also coordinated a telephone denial of service attack on the customer service phone line using thousands of robocalls. Then again, in December 2016, the northern part of Kiev lost power after a power distribution station unexpectedly switched off. When the electric company's IT team investigated, they found data transmission that is not part of their standard protocols, which suggests a cyber attack. It is suspected that Russian threat actors again attacked the Ukrainian power grid. The investigation found that the Ukrainian power companies had segmented the IT and OT networks with a robust firewall. The major weakness was the lack of multi-factor authentication. The cyber attack could have been much worse. Towards the end of the video, we'll discuss why hackers may have chosen to exercise restraint. Before we jump into that, let's first cover another likely threat actor, China. On October 12, 2020, the Indian city of Mumbai suffered a major power outage. Trains shut down, the stock market closed, and mobile telephone services collapsed after a grid failure that affected all of Mumbai. Roughly 20 million people were without power. In some parts of the city, the outage lasted for more than 12 hours. The New York Times was one of the first to publicly speculate that the outage could have been the result of a cyber attack. The next day, during a press conference, a local Indian minister later acknowledged that the Mumbai police were investigating 14 Trojan horse programs in the city's power system and that the outage could have been the result of a cyber attack. The official position of the Indian government is that the outage was not caused by a cyber attack, but they did confirm to ANI that cyber attacks indeed happened. In 2020, after the start of the India-China border dispute, before the Mumbai outage, Recorded Future announced they had been observing a steep rise in the use of infrastructure known as axiomatic asymptote targeting India. The infrastructure encompasses the command and control servers for the modular Chinese backdoor malware called ShadowPad used by Red Eco. According to Recorded Future, the Chinese state-sponsored hacker group Red Eco targeted a large portion of India's power sector. They targeted at least 10 power sector organizations, 1 power plant, 4 of the 5 of the country's regional load dispatch centers, and other grid assets. The targeted regional load dispatch centers are responsible for balancing supply and demand, which is critical for grid stability. Cyber Peace Foundation, an Indian nonprofit that tracks hacking efforts, also documented a surge of malware directed toward India's power sector, ranging from petroleum refineries to a nuclear power plant. Starting around late 2021, Chinese threat actors switched gears. They began to concentrate their targeting to power grid assets closer to the disputed territory. According to Recorded Future, they observed likely network intrusions targeting at least 7 Indian state load dispatch centers near Ladakh. State load dispatch centers are vital for carrying out grid control and dispatching electricity to the demand areas. They deployed the ShadowPad backdoor and used compromised internet-facing DVR and IP cameras as proxies to forward their command and control communications, effectively hiding the command and control servers' IP addresses from Indian defenses. They used the open-source tool Fast Reverse Proxy to configure the forwarding. While the Indian government has not released many details about the attacks, according to PTI, the Indian Minister of Power, R.K. Singh, acknowledged China launched 3 probing cyber attacks on the Indian power grid in December, January, and February 2022. He stated they were not successful. It seems like the Russian and Chinese governments are using cyber attacks on the power grid to gain leverage. They are sending a signal that they can cause problems if the respective governments act against the Russian or Chinese government interests. They are also pre-positioning. They seem to be probing the defense capabilities, performing.
So over here we seen the two cyber attack. It's a real one in Russia to the Ukraine, one China to the India. In India is designing for the, it's not successful attack on our power grid, but both related to our energy ecosystem where they tried to penetrate in our LDC network as well, load dispatch center. So that was the case, and you have seen the root cause analysis or report where only word file receiving the spear phishing mail, and through that they're entering a lateral movement in our environment. Okay, and second is default credential in the serial to Ethernet converter is also there, and older firmware in the serial to Ethernet converter. So that was the case where two successful cyber attack in our power grid ecosystem. Okay. Now our theme is like business resilient. So now we are generating the 230 gigawatt of the energy. So we are producing the gigawatt energy. So now as a leader, our responsibility to secure this gigawatt. We will not generate only the green gigawatt, but at least we have to secure this gigawatt as well. But not only every cyber incident is we can resolve and work with the SOC alert. So at least we need to be cyber resilient. It means how quickly we can recover our system without losing the trust or losing the energy transmission to the grid. So that is more important. So business need to be understand how business can be recovered quickly once incident occur. So that is a parameter of these themes. That's why we call the cyber resilient business imperative. So business just require the safety part, trust part, and the recovery part of the operation. So business has these three expectations. Once the cyber attack occur, how quickly we can recover? Is there any revenue loss due to the cyber attack? And third, is there any harm, physical harm in our environment? So these are the questions asked by the board. So now this question is not related to SOC room. Now it comes to our boardroom as well. So we need to move from the SOC room to the boardroom. We need to fulfill and adopt the philosophy of the technology control selection to the strategy discussion. And this kind of the forum and summit, I think we will discuss in next 2 days for the how we can create the OT ecosystem where IT, OT, and cloud are integrated so tightly. So we'll discuss in 2 days how we can cyber resilient in our environment, and it will be the business imperative as well. Because now we are collecting the data from OT to IT, as Gulshan sir said, and MAKP Singh sir said backup is required. So business resilient part is more important, where we are collecting each bit of the data in the cloud and performing the analytics in the cloud. And now this is not isolation. Initial days OEM called secure by isolation, but now we are calling as secure by design principle algorithm in any devices. So with that note, I would like to conclude and thank you for everyone. We'll discuss 2 days over here, and don't assumption anything, challenge your assumption, discuss your business use case over here in panel discussion, and collaborate tightly with the 2 days. With that note, thank you all of you over here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are moving ahead.